Good afternoon, everyone. Recording is in progress. I get this question all the time. Is this being recorded? Yes. If you're a member of the 10th house, I will put the replay up probably by tomorrow morning, if not end of day today. So don't worry if you're like, oh shoot, what was that strategy? What was that tip? What was that book mentioned? You can go back and you can rewatch. I would love to know where everyone is joining us from. And a little bit about your brand. You can just say the industry, what you offer, product, service, whatever it is. I'd love to know who's in the room with us today. For our past several workshops, we've had people join from all over the globe, across industries and verticals. So very curious to see who we have with us today. I heard, or I see someone asked where you can find the recordings. If you go inside of the 10th house, there's a space that says education, and I believe it says event replay, so you can find it there. We've got Wendy from Scottsdale, Arizona, who's in the beauty space. You're welcome, Lily. We have a fashion brand based out of Toronto, Los Angeles shower kit, travel shower kit. Okay, beautiful. Clip and extension line. Okay, amazing. So I don't know if I said this already, but I'm Avery. I'm head of programming and events for Female Founder Collective and the 10th House. If you are not familiar with Female Founder Collective or the 10th House, Female Founder Collective started in 2018 as basically a Slack channel for women who are looking for community and access and intros. Since then, it has turned into a fully curated digital community, which is called the 10th House. And inside of the 10th House, we welcome people via cohort. So right now we're in our beauty and personal care cohort. So that includes everything from home care to toiletries to makeup to perfume to anything that we do to take care of ourselves, our bodies, our homes. That all falls under the beauty and personal care, which is why today's conversation is so exciting for us. But before I get to that, something to note is, Emilie, do you want to give me a thumbs up or thumbs down if you're able to? Okay, gorgeous. We're testing screen sharing. Okay, great. You can keep that up, and then I'll pass it over to you and Sarah in just a moment. But Female Founder Collective is thrilled to partner with Settle to further elevate female founders. So if you can see this first slide here, we're partnering with Settle on this workshop. So with a mission to power CPG with the CPG economy with a unified platform designed for operations. Settle levels the financing gap for women-owned businesses with Settle Working Capital. So this is actually the third installment of a three-part financial fluency workshop series, which has included 2 other workshops and a download. So if you want access to those, we have replays up. You can go to our education tab on the 10th House website, and you can access all of those things. But Settle proudly serves brands like Soft Services, Dagny Dover, Gia, people who you love, including people who are in this room today. So want to note that today is super interactive. Pop your questions in the chat. We have about 53 minutes left together. So if there is time left, there will be time for Q&A. I do just want to shout out a couple of other people before I pass it over to Sarah and Emilie. We have CBG Herbal Wellness, we have lingerie, we have apparel out of California, San Diego retail consultant. I just moved to San Diego, would love any recs. East Hampton's luxury candles. Okay, amazing. Okay, Sarah and Emilie, I'm going to pass it over to you. I'm going to go off screen, off mic, because we all cannot wait to hear from you both. And welcome. Thank you for being here, by the way.
Thank you for having us, Avery. My name is Emilie Sherio, and I'm so excited to be here today to help Sarah bring really her experience to us. Let's make sure my clicks get the screens moving. There we go. So my name is Emilie Sherio. I'm a product manager for inventory here at Settle. I was the former CEO and founder of Turbine and inventory management platform. And the real star of the show today is going to be Sarah. Sarah's going to introduce herself in just a second, but let's run through the agenda. So we're going to do introductions. We're going to talk about holiday ready operations. We all know exactly how many days until Black Friday. And so what can we do between now and then? Thinking about accurate COGS for the holiday season and into the future. Thinking about efficiency in the business, talking about resetting at the new year, and then how Settle can help. We'll make sure to leave some time at the end for your questions. So please keep those questions coming in the chat, and we'll try to tackle as many of them as we can. So with that, to the woman who needs no introduction on this call, Sarah, thanks so much for being here with us today. Tell us a little bit about you, about Homecourt, and how that came to be.
Sounds good. So Homecourt, we make beauty products for the home. We have an award-winning collection now of not just home, but also body care products. And our three pillars are our fine fragrance, clean formulations, and sustainable packaging. We launched D2C in 2022. We're now an omni-channel business in over 70 independent boutiques and launching at Bluemercury and Nordstrom later this year. And we're managing over 40 SKUs to date. If you want to go to the next slide, I can tell you a little bit more about me, my co-founder, and how we got started. So I started my career in management consulting at PwC. I then went to business school at Chicago Booth to get my MBA. While I was there, I was a consumer associate at an angel investment fund called Hyde Park Angels. But ultimately, after business school, I wanted to learn about the beauty industry. So I went to L'Oreal. I was there for about 5 years, and I worked in the luxury division at brands like Kiehl's, Armani, YSL, Maison Margiela, Ralph Lauren. And most recently at L'Oreal, I was the head of marketing for Victor and Rolf fragrance, which was about an $82 million retail business at the time. So I did have P&L management there. And in 2020, I was wanting a change. You know, big corporate is an amazing place to learn, but I was really eager to get back to some earlier stage companies like the ones I had been exposed to in business school. And so I started networking and met a family office who actually knew Courtney Cox. And Courtney, as it turns out, is super passionate about fragrances. She used to mix her own oils to create her own perfume. And not only did she love fragrance, but she also loves home design and architecture. She even studied architecture before becoming an actress. And Courtney had wanted to start a line of candles. So that's why the family office set Courtney and I up to chat about the fragrance industry. And we really hit it off. And I said, Courtney, we can definitely make candles, but there's a bigger opportunity here. I saw that in the fragrance market, which was growing really fast, it was the top end, the prestige end of the market that was driving that growth. And that indicated to me that customers were going to want fine fragrance and perfumery and even more parts of their daily life. And not to mention, Courtney was Monica on Friends. And if you ever get to meet her, she truly is Monica. So she knows a thing or two about cleaning. And that's why we thought, wow, this would be perfect. Let's bring a luxury beauty brand philosophy into the home and home care products. So I mentioned before, we have over 40 SKUs. While we launched with in 2022 with just 3, it was surface spray, dish soap, and hand wash. Then we launched candles and hand cream. Then we launched in 2023 our room deodorant. This actually won an Allure Best of Beauty Award 2 years in a row. That's our version of Febreze. It deodorizes as well as imparts fine fragrance. And then recently in 2024, we launched a body collection of body wash, body butter, body mist, and a perfume oil. And all of these products come in now 7 fragrance franchises. So happy to talk more about the products, but given the context of this conversation today, that's a lot of SKUs and inventory to manage. So happy to share my learnings. Thanks.
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate that. And as the mom to 2 little boys, a third on the way, I can say there is never enough room deodorizer. All right, let's tell you a little bit about Settle here. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with Settle, maybe you missed Becca's last session with the Mocktail Club. Settle is 90 team members dedicated to making the best inventory payments, working capital solution out there for growing brands like you, like Homecourt, like everyone on this call. And there are over 48,000 POs issued annually on Settle. We have over $1.8 billion of payments processed. So really serving brands. And I love these numbers because they show not just, you know, here's a bunch of fancy logos, though, I'm going to do that too. But I get the chance to really see how and the impact we're driving with the brands we get to work with. So it's special to me, and can't wait till we have even more of the folks on this call having their logos on this slide. Let's jump into what we're here to talk about: inventory and cash. And so we'll jump right into it. Inventory costs are the number one burden on consumer brands, right? There's this too much inventory is tied up cash flow, but not enough inventory is lost sales, especially if you're not sure what the source of truth for your business is. There we go. And so when I think about supply chain operations, we're really trying to strike this balance between inventory and cash flow. So whether you're talking about raw material ordering for manufacturing or ordering finished goods, unplanned or unexpected freight delays, upcharges, think strikes, geopolitical changes, port delays, all these pieces of information that we're not necessarily planning for, lead time to consider when you're supporting or selling into retailers for the first time. These are all considerations as you think about what are the supply chain operations changes you can make for your organization, not just as we head into the fourth quarter and peak season, but really as you're looking to optimize across the board. And I like to remind folks, your business's best day is the day that business becomes more complicated, right? When you add a new retail partner, you suddenly got 40 more versions of your SKUs to manage, right? Is everyone nodding back home because you know this pain, trying to reconcile across not just Amazon, not just Shopify, but also now every single retailer that you're working with. And multi-channel expansion makes this all less predictable because you have to track which retailers are working on which timelines. You've got multiple POs you're sending, you've got work orders, you're receiving bills 6 months after the freight was moved in the first place. And so Settle consolidates this complexity into a single operating system. We think of it as one platform with all the information driving your business, from supply chain to COGS, because managing our finances well means managing our inventory well. So, Sarah, this is where I would love to hear for you as you think about operations, especially going into peak here. What is the most common mistake you see brands make as they're scaling for the holiday season?
Yes, so holiday 2024 is going to be Homecourt's third holiday. Hopefully third time will be a charm. And we've had a lot of lessons. I think there's two main areas that mistakes happen. One is with the inventory. Do you have enough to supply the demand of the peak holiday season? And then number two, can your 3PL and fulfillment partners keep up with that demand? So talking about inventory first, for a fragrance business, and I saw this at L'Oreal as well as Homecourt, Q4, so October through December, represents about 40% of our full year. So that's really important. Now, in our first holiday, we were in a new business. We didn't have that much history. So we were actually going out of stock a lot in the first year. And then actually that being out of stock even rippled into our second holiday as well, because sometimes it takes time to learn and to forecast and make sure you have enough stock. One thing, and I might touch on this later in the call too, but holiday, you shouldn't be planning it in October. Truly, you should be planning it earlier in the year, especially if you're a retail business. A lot of retailers are going to require you to ship your holiday products in the month of September. So you're going to need to back out from there. So that is what I have to say about inventory. Related to fulfillment, in addition to lots of customers shopping during the holiday season, that means that there can be shipping delays, and your 3PL is going to be slammed with fulfilling the products. We actually, I had customer service emails before in the holiday season. Due to the out of stocks, we had to delay shipments or split shipments. And then the 3PL also was overwhelmed. So I had customers emailing me, "You've ruined Christmas," but then we ended up saving the day and they said, "You saved Christmas." So it's definitely an emotional roller coaster during the holiday season for brands. But what you can do now, and before the holidays, is make sure you're with the right fulfillment partner. Give them your forecast so you can say, hey, we're growing. We know this is going to be 40% of our year. So if you had staff in the warehouse for, this level of business, know that we're going to be scaling up October through November. I need you to staff up and just start to manage that relationship. One other just war story I'll share. We actually switched our 3PL last holiday, 2 weeks before Black Friday, Cyber Monday. I wouldn't recommend that timing in the future, but it was the right move since we went to a partner who could handle our operations even better.
Yeah, it's always interesting to hear those sorts of anecdotes because the story always goes, and it went great, and the whole season went on fire. So I'm glad to hear it was the right partner for you. And I think, if I heard correctly here, oops, there we go. For folks who listen to Sarah, you want to be thinking about your workflows and your timelines. So what is the support you need for your anticipated demand, making sure you're communicating with your 3PL or fulfillment partners, and then you have a clear sense of what your timelines need to look like. If you didn't write this down, let's make sure everyone get a pen and pencil or pen or pencil here. But October is too late. If you're going into retail, you often need to have that material out by September. So start backwards planning for next year now. And then I just want to call out, because it seems to happen over and over, is consider freight delays. Build them into your timeline plans, because it feels like there's always something in the news these days, and it could happen to you too. Let's jump in a little bit into cost management and landed costs. So when I talk to brands, oftentimes we're so focused on building an incredible product that we can lose sight of the dollars and cents behind it. And we really don't want to do that. So let's start with some definitions. What is landed cost? This is a cost of what it takes to produce your item. So if you're buying a finished good, like a candle, and you're getting it to a warehouse in a location, that unit cost plus your freight shipment, any tariffs you might have, insurance, all of that gets baked into your landed cost calculation. Now, COGS, C-O-G-S, stands for costs of goods sold. This is an accounting term if you're unfamiliar, and COGS is where we tie that landed cost of that unit to when it is actually sold. So you don't have COGS on an item sold in inventory. Calculating costs is what you're doing at that stage in the business. Calculating COGS is hard because you have to tie the costs incurred in the production and landing of the good to when an item is actually sold. And so here's an example. It's a lot of math on this screen, but the quick version: finished good, you order your unit, you add some freight shipment to it, you allocate that freight shipment over all of the units in that shipment. Now you've got a landed cost. If you're thinking about a manufactured product, it's a little bit more complex. So I like to use a jar of peanut butter or your favorite jarred thing as an example, but you've got a jar, a label, and a lid. You buy those things, you land them, they maybe have one or multiple freight shipments associated with it. That's the landed cost for that before manufacturing. You send it to a co-man who's going to make your peanut butter fill. They're going to assemble it for you. Then you're going to have to send it in a final freight shipment to your 3PL for fulfillment. All of those costs incurred go into calculating your landed costs. And if you're doing this today, you're probably doing it in a spreadsheet that looks something like this. But these numbers are incredibly important to your business. And if you don't have confidence in them, you're not sure of your profitability. People use this to answer things like, am I profitable? And which products do I want to double down on? As you think about going into the Black Friday season, you can also use this information to think about promotions. What products do I want to upsell? What do I want to bundle? How do I do that strategically? And so at Settle, we help calculate landed costs through purchase orders and work orders. We have built-in payments so you can understand your landed costs for any unit at every step in your supply chain, all the way from PO creation, all the way to when an item's in inventory and eventually sold. And so my acronym when I think about COGS is ABC. Always be calculating your timely, accurate costs. So when you're thinking about what you need to know about your COGS as we head into the next quarter here, I want you to think about what COGS trends you can see, right? First, do you have your data? And then once you do, what COGS trends are you surprised by looking back? What strategies are you planning on testing around pricing? So especially in the direct-to-consumer world, you still have time to make decisions and changes to your pricing strategy going into Black Friday. Can you use Halloween, maybe a special holiday, your VIP email list to test promotions? And then can you think about that strategic bundling piece of the strategic bundling piece of the process, right? So maybe you take your most profitable item or your lowest cost item and make that a free gift for orders above a certain AOV. Sarah, can you tell us a little bit about how you've seen brands eat up their margins?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Promotionality and the point that you had on number 3 on the past slide is very important. Obviously, to be competitive, especially during Cyber Week, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, you do need to offer some sort of promotionality, but it can be very addictive. So it is very important, like you mentioned on the previous slide, how can you test it throughout the year? To know what your customer what actually will drive a purchase. And at Homecourt, we really think of promotions differently for repeat customers versus new customers. And we actually split promotions. So depending on what type of customer you are, you might see a different offer. But when it comes to promotionality, site-wide is easy, discount, for example, but then you might be very sneakily accidentally discounting already discounted bundles and really missing out on profitability. So I come from the luxury world where really you're only promotional at certain times of the year. We don't even communicate it that often as % off. There's different luxury, more elevated ways to explain what we're doing. And we do really love a gift with purchase, by the way. But we also definitely exclude things like sets and already discounted bundles. So it can be scary when you see all of these other brands saying 40% off, 70% off, 80% off, but don't get addicted. Do what's right for your business and feel confident in the product that you have and that customers are going to come back for more. So I think promotionality, just be super careful. And then another thing that when you mentioned the difference between landed costs and then COGS, cost of goods sold. So, the cost of goods sold is also how you sell it. If you're shipping it out in D2C, it's going to be the pick and pack and then the actual shipping costs, right? I've discovered, you have to really stay on your 3PL. If they're packaging gifts, what if they're putting it in too big of a box? And then you're shipping air, right? Because shipping costs are calculated by weight and dimensions. So if the more you can streamline and make sure that everything is as optimized as possible, that your secondary packaging isn't too big, that the shipping box that's being put in isn't too big, you can save costs here and there.
Yeah, fulfillment costs can definitely eat into your margins in addition to all the ways that COGS can eat in. And I heard you say something, Sarah. We're talking about numbers and costs and COGS here, but I also heard you say, know your brand, know your customer, and do what is right for your brand. And so even if you get the math right, we have to stay true to what we're building in the vision. Is that right?
Yes, definitely.
I love it. I love it. When it comes to knowing your numbers, though, there's 2 action items I want folks to take from here today. The first is set your goals. What profit margin are you going to target for your hero SKU? And what out of stock rate are you consider acceptable, right? So maybe you want to risk selling out a little bit. You don't want to tie up too much cash flow in inventory. What's the balance you're comfortable with as we go into this season? And then make sure your tracking is in place, right? Think about all the questions you had this quarter that you wanted answered with data and you weren't able to get answers to, and reflect on what changes you need to make now so that you can have data for this quarter going into next year. So how will you track your COGS reliably and consistently? Ensure that you can put that method in place, and then being able to break that down by cost driver, unit cost, freight cost, tariff, production, all the different pieces that are going into that COGS calculation. So the next piece of the puzzle I want to talk about is efficiency. And when it comes to efficiency, there are lots of ways you can think about it. The first piece that I want to cover is a little bit around your supply chain timeline, specifically striking a balance. A good example here is like, do you order larger POs and hold units in inventory for longer? Or do you order more frequent POs and have more shipments? And finding that balance is all specific to your business, but it is an easy lever for brands to consider where they're looking for efficiency opportunities. The other is finance and ops teams. In my prior lives, one of the hardest ways to stay efficient as an org was keep everyone on the same page. And so the ops team made a payment on a purchase order, or the finance person is trying to track down a payment on a purchase order, or there's a payment that went out that we're not even sure what purchase order it's tied to. And so as you think about efficiency, consolidating your workflows can be one of the biggest levers for you. And so in Settle, we allow you to make deposits right from those purchase orders or work order documents. So you're never wondering where the connection between those items are, so you can save time and close faster. And then we also automate three-way matching. So helping you understand what you ordered is what you received and is what you're paying for. And we integrate with over 40 WMSs so that you don't have to chase down numbers around what your actual inventory looks like. And Settle brands using three-way matching are identifying $270K in potential vendor credits per year, which is an incredible efficiency gain. Sarah, as brands are thinking about what they can do going into the rest of this quarter, and then what they can do in longer strategic planning for next year, where should they look for efficiency opportunities?
I would say one area of efficiency specifically for cash is related to supplier payment terms. So, when you start your business, maybe you have to put 100% down, or maybe 50% down, and then you have to pay the next 50% when it's ready to ship. Then there's things like net 30. Can you wait 30 days after they ship the product to pay? Net 60, net 90, etc. It's hard when you're smaller and you're just starting because you're kind of new. It's like having no credit background or history. But as you grow, those terms can really help extend your cash. And think about it. If you have more cash now, what else can you do with that cash? You could do more marketing on Facebook or Google to then do more sales, which then gives you more cash to then pay for the inventory in 30, 60, 90 days. So keeping your cash with you as long as possible is important. And that's why negotiating terms with your supplier is something that can really help capital efficiency.
I love that. And so ensure a method to align cash flow with your inventory and financial goals as you think about an efficiency opportunity for the new year, or the last quarter and the new year, really. We know that planning for the holiday season can represent gaps in this process, especially if you're paying deposits in June, but not earning revenue until October. Sarah, I see you nodding. This is what you're going through right now, right?
Yeah, you definitely have to, especially with unique raw materials like Homecourt has. In my first year of business, we actually had to place deposits 6 to 9 months in advance sometimes.
Wow. Wow. And it can be hard. It can tie up your cash flow. It's hard to decide where to invest when it's not even that you've tied up your cash flow in inventory that's on the shelf that you can sell. It's tied up in cash flow in inventory that you don't even have yet. And so for brands that are scaling, growing, they should consider debt as a secret weapon in your growth plans. And we can see here that leverage allows a brand to supercharge their cash flow and scale. Settle is a part of that working capital solution. And so we offer an efficient, differentiating working capital solution for SMBs, an easy application where you can find out in just 1 to 2 business days whether or not you're eligible. We have data-driven underwriting and flexible financing. Excuse me, you can pay Settle back in 30 to 210 days, really extending that cash flow opportunity, not just the supplier payment terms that you can negotiate or renegotiate, like Sarah mentioned, but then Settle can be an additional layer to extend that even further. Coming into the last couple of topics here, let's talk about the new year. Imagine, you've made it through. Congratulations. We're on the other side of Black Friday, Cyber Monday, holiday season. You've done that 40% of revenue for the year that you're going to do in the last 25% of the year. Things to consider as you're planning 2025. Think about your supply chain timeline. Is it 9 to 12 months like Sarah was sharing? Is it 6 months? Is it some other time frame that you want to tweak? Should you be exploring whether there are other shipping or suppliers or other options out there? And then looking at the numbers, what are you spending on shipping versus holding inventory? Is there a different balance to consider as you go into the new year? Also considering some of those goals we set earlier around stock out rates that are tolerable, profitability goals you have. And so Sarah, maybe, tell us a little bit about your yearly reflection and planning process around operations and capital assessment.
Sure. So I like to look at a forecast, both financial and inventory, from all different sides. So top down, bottoms up. Top down is, okay, we're gonna double this year. We're gonna grow by 100%. So you look at the seasonality of the business, the percent weight of each month, and then you apply a growth rate to it. You've got your top line forecast. Obviously, channels go into the top line forecast. Then bottoms up is, what SKUs are we selling at what pace? To build up to that forecast. So you do more of a financial top down and then an operations supply chain bottoms up. I would recommend, and this is actually what we did at L'Oreal, and I tried to bring it to a new startup company as well. Pre-budget is July. So for example, you want to have your annual target and your monthly flow for 2025 in July of finalized in July of 2024. In October, you sign off on that budget for the year with your board. But then every month throughout the year, you're having what we call consensus. It's where finance, marketing, sales, operations all come together and they look at the forecast. How did it perform according to plan? And another tip that I teach my team that I'd love to share with you all today is, it's not, oh, we did good, we did bad. It's, what did you do versus the plan? You take the emotion out of it. What's the plan? How did you perform? So when you look at the consensus, how did we do versus plan? You decide if you need to take the forecast up or down. We also, in that meeting, look at the product mix every month. So we get really granular. By fragrance, what are the different SKU mix? By category, what are the different fragrance mix? What's the seasonality? Are new launches cannibalizing and taking away share from the existing products? So we get that's the meeting that we get really granular about that. And what else was I going to say? So that's our consensus meeting. You take the plan up or down. And we're trying to at least have things on order, at least 6 months in advance. One other thing I'll mention is for 2025, this is the first opportunity Homecourt sees to potentially get extra cost savings and efficiencies by ordering more upfront versus those little POs throughout the year. And that's because for us, we do manufactured products, not finished goods. So we're managing even the raw materials. We're going to identify more cost savings if my contract manufacturer can order all of the benzostat, for example, which is an ingredient up front in the year versus little kilos throughout the year. So it does require more cash. And so that's something you can do when you're a more mature business or have different funding. But that's another thing we're doing this year.
Okay, Sarah, let's dig in because I heard so much goodness there. The first is when it comes to forecasting, it's not just finance, it's not just operations, it's the combination. So for financials, top down, operations, bottoms up, and then we have to work together as a team to find the middle. The other thing I really heard there around the timeline was, I hope everyone's writing this down. July, you're thinking about your pre-budget. In October, you're getting sign off from your board or your key stakeholders. And then every month you're reviewing that for consensus. Tell us, someone's sitting on this call, it's October 10th. They don't have a 2025 budget yet. What should they do?
Take a deep breath. And I think that the most important thing is going to be Q1. You're going to want to make sure that you have enough inventory now for Q4 as well as Q1. If you don't, that's okay. I would focus on breaking this up into little quarters. I would encourage you to at least try to nail down first half demand and forecast so that you can be buying the inventory now. And then, after you get through the peak craziness, focus on second half. So break it into smaller bites, but hopefully, and it's really hard when your business doesn't have history. Once you have history, it's amazing how cyclical businesses are. It's so funny. It's like like I said earlier, Q4 is just always 40% of the year. So you start to see that history and you can plan your business and you have more comfort and more data to back it up. But you can usually, if you have a great Q4, you're also going to have a pretty great Q1 because you've acquired all of these new customers to your brand, or maybe the repeat customers gave people the gifts for holiday and they want to come back. So just make sure that you can keep that momentum going after the holidays and place your orders now.
I think that's so important. And that's right. Take a deep breath, solve the immediate problem, identify the next step, and then we can revisit the second half of 2025's budget in January, February, when you have a little bit more breathing room. The second thing I wanted to dig in there was consensus. You talked about your monthly consensus process. Can you share a little bit more about what you're doing, who's in the room, how long are you doing it, how frequently are you getting to consensus with your team?
It's a monthly meeting that typically happens like the second Tuesday of the month. The inputs to that are we download sales by SKU for each channel. And then we have a demand planner consultant who, will take all the data from all the different channels and determine if we were ahead or behind forecast. And then she puts it into that product mix format that we look at. I think that, so let me see. There's a lot of different columns, if you will, that we look at, but I think some really important ones, percent change, you can do it month over month or year over year. I find year over year to be more interesting because again, when you see those historical consistencies, you know how you're doing. So percent change is really important. Percent pen, which for me that means percent penetration, the weight of your business. How important is the CC surface spray, for example, to your business? That also goes into if something is 30% of your sales, it better have a pretty good margin. If something's only 1% of your sales, maybe that can be a poor margin product. So percent change, preferably year over year, percent penetration, and then you look at it percent to plan, and then you also look at it. You look at those three things in different ways: that month, year to date, and then rest of the year. So, for example, if you are up 80% year to date, but then you're supposed to be up 200% for the rest of the year, you go, is that right? I don't know. That might be a little risky. If you're up 80% year to date, and then you're planning the rest of the year down 60%, hey, actually, maybe there's some upside to the rest of the year on this SKU.
Yeah, I think that's so good. I hope everyone had their pens out as you were talking, because I was taking notes, and I know these are going to be notes that I scribbled so fast. I'm going to have to spend time deciphering my own handwriting a little bit here. That was awesome. And I think considering the kind of business you are, knowing your seasonality is all just a piece of how we should think about these things. So to you all in the audience, I can't wait to hear what you take with that feedback around consensus. As you think about the new year, make sure you carve out some time to reset, review, reflect, and then reset, review, and reflect some more. So I want you to open a new browser tab, pull up your calendar for January. If you don't already have time carved out to do this reset, review, and reflection, go block it off on your calendars right now. While I'm talking, I promise I will keep talking, but get that on the calendar, block it off, make sure it happens, make it a commitment. And as you're thinking about that, there are lots of different pieces of this you need to be considering. Your profit margin, your goals, how you hit the forecast, your revenue numbers. But there are also other things to consider. So for example, what technology gaps did you experience in Q4 that you need to adjust? What opportunities did you say yes to that you need to find more of? Who was that great partner, that great influencer, that great retailer, that brand, that thing that you want to keep working with? On the other hand, what opportunities did you say yes to that you want to make sure you say no to in the future? Because it didn't pay off or wasn't worth it or whatever it might be. And then is now a good time to identify a timeline change, right? Were you behind in planning going into Q4 and you could have leveraged the summer slump to get ahead? Or maybe now is the time you plan so that in July of next year, you are doing pre-budget for 2026, right? These are all things you can plan for as we move out of Q4 and into Q1 to set yourself up for a stronger next year and future as you grow. So when it comes to your tech stack, I want to tell you a little bit more about some of the pieces you can evaluate here. So most brands spend a lot of time stitching together information from a lot of different systems. I heard even Sarah say, we have to download our sales by SKU per channel, and then we have to put it in the spreadsheet format, right? And this is because you're working across a bunch of different systems. Each of them has a piece of the information. You might be spending $4,000 or $5,000 a month, not a year, a month on software tools that just aren't talking to each other. And that's because, well, if that's your problem, I want to start by saying you're not alone. Most companies have this difficulty. Consumer brands struggle to stitch together the information they need because each piece of software is built to do that one thing and only that thing, and doesn't consider how it fits into a larger ecosystem. There are too many spreadsheets, too many point solutions, really too much time trying to track down what's accurate and what's not. And it's costing your business time and money. So Settle unifies your CPG tech stack, consolidating bill pay, procurement, inventory, your product management data with your sales orders, warehouse management, and accounting sync as well. Settle saves you time, we save you money, and we help get accurate insights you need so you can scale your business. We're powerful inventory management for CPG brands. So as you're thinking about working capital financing, purchasing workflows, bill payments, and then inventory forecasting, we are a key part of how brands can hit the next level of scale. And I think we heard that in the presentations, in the talking points today, that it all comes down to knowing your numbers, knowing your costs, knowing what your demand's going to look like, knowing your business. So how does it all come together? You consolidate your product and SKU data into Settle's universal catalog. You can consolidate your procurement with purchase orders, work orders, inventory transfers, communication with your suppliers, all of your inventory so that you can do forecasting and management by SKU and by location, all of your payments, invoiced, standalone, linked to the purchase order and related documents, And then all of your financing, fast and flexible PO financing, of course, all two-way synced with Shopify and your WMS. So you're no longer copy and pasting out of 12 different spreadsheets. Today, we integrate with over 46 different WMS and sales channels, syncing inventory locations and SKU data. So again, not chasing information down and trying to glue it together in a spreadsheet, but a single source of truth that you can finally trust for your business. And building your operations on Settle saves time and money. So a mid-sized brand is not just not spending all that money on software, but we can also help bring back your time efficiency for, candidly, some of the most strategic players in your organization. So we can help you save over $9,000 a year in efficiencies on time savings, and then an increased margin of up to $115,000 a year. So Sarah, as we think about what comes next, we'd love to hear a little bit about how Settle fits into the equation for the Homecourt team as you're growing your brand.
Yes. I think I've been a customer of Settle since 2022. It's pretty early on in launch. And we started with the PO financing. So the ability that Settle offers to extend terms. So for example, I have a bill that's due on October 15th, but I finance it through Settle and they can extend it up to 120 days. So they pay that supplier and then I pay back Settle over time. That has been really helpful. It's basically like having a line of credit. Earlier this year, I switched all of my AP, my accounts payable, my bill payment and processing to Settle. So we left bill.com. We would do it in Settle. And part of that was because we were doing a lot of financing through Settle and it made it all easier. And it's just much more seamless to have everything in one place. And then soon we're really interested in the new technology that Emilie's company brought over to Settle. The three-way match is super interesting. We want to be able to put, I think you would call them work orders, future POs that, we're planning, but we're not actually opening yet, to help us forecast how long the cash is going to last. So I'm really excited that there's even more inventory management capabilities coming to Settle, and we plan to take advantage of them.
I am so happy to hear that. For you and for everyone on the call, I will say you now know the person who does a lot of the inventory feature functionality at Settle, and so don't hesitate to reach out. We're always happy to chat. For everyone who attended today, I appreciate so much of your time. So many gems. I'm looking at my notes here. Things about by the time you're in October, it's almost too late to be planning for next year. Really, you needed to have started already. But if you haven't started, take a deep breath. The best time is now. When you're thinking about your promotions, your profitability, it's not just enough to know what your numbers are, but you have to know your customer and your brand too. Thinking about forecasting, thinking about your timeline, thinking about your supplier payment terms, and then do you have options like Settle to help extend those supplier payment terms even further. Just so many gems I heard today. Thank you so much, Sarah, for the time. I think we have a little bit of time for questions if Avery wants to hop back on, and we can jump to those.
I would love to. This is now a great time to pop your questions into the chat, and then everyone who RSVP'd got the option to submit a question ahead of time. So I want to make sure that I get to those as well. So this one is from Christina, and that is, do you have any strategies or plans to mitigate returns during the holiday season? This would be a question for you, Sarah.
Yeah. So fortunately, Homecourt doesn't have a very high return rate. So we don't see it necessarily go up in the holidays. And as a newer, I would say fairly new brand, plus the fact that we're a prestige luxury positioning, for example, we call our customer service team the concierge. We really want to offer the customer the best service possible. So you know, as long as it's within 30 days, we would accept a return. But we actually have a really great concierge team who usually ends up exchanging it for a new fragrance or something else. So I truly believe to win customers over in the brand, I don't think you should have a very strict return policy. I think especially as a new brand, see how it goes. You can always make it harsher or later, but I think that I kind of believe like the customer is always right, and that can actually differentiate you nowadays. I've shopped with other brands before where they make it so hard to return or exchange, and it kind of leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
100%. I just hosted an event at San Francisco Tech Week, and the investors, the founders, everyone said you need to treat your customers like they're on your advisory board. So I think that's really great advice, and I love that you have the concierge service. Okay, this next one is from Anna, also for you, Sarah. This is not a financial question. This is more of a marketing question, but what are the best ways to drive traffic to our website? Do I need to use TikTok Shop and Instagram shopping feature, or can I rely on my website?
Interesting. Actually, Homecourt, the #1 traffic source is direct, which means that people are typing in the website or maybe seeing it on social media or an article, but then somehow getting to the website directly. So it's going to depend. I'll say we're not very active on TikTok right now. I know there's a huge potential there, but that's just not really where our customer is. So you have to figure out where your customer is. I would encourage you to do a post-purchase survey as well in your website, because then you can have the customer tell you where they're finding out about you and then double down on whatever channel that says.
Great idea. And that says a lot about Homecourt, that direct is your #1 driver. A lot of companies cannot say that. Okay, this one is from Allison from the chat, and it is, do you have any 3PL recommendations or recommendations on how to select?
Yes. I worked with an operations team to do an RFP where we actually had many 3PLs bid for our business, and we asked them a very specific set of questions. The one I'm currently with that I am happy with, so happy to recommend them, is called Rocket Shippers.
Amazing. Okay, rocket shippers for all of you taking notes. Emilie, everyone's saying that you're amazing in the chat, and everyone wants to know if they can get access to these slides. I do want to say that technically they are available by watching the replay, but if you can give access to a couple of the slides as like a PDF or something.
Yeah, we'll work on that behind the scenes, and Avery, you'll make them available with the recording?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I can do that. Okay. Let's end on just one final piece of advice that you have for early stage founders in the group who are here live and watching on the replay. Let's start with you, Emilie, and wrap with you, Sarah.
You know, I'm a numbers and math person and come to all of these questions from that perspective. But I think my takeaway from Sarah today is that you can know your numbers all you want. You have to know your customer too. And so that's going to be my takeaway from today's discussion. Know your customer. And Sarah, I can't wait to hear what you add to that.
Thanks. Well, generally, founder advice is just keep going, stay in the game. And I think when it does come to numbers, they can be intimidating. It's just a language. I remember coming to L'Oreal, and I had even gone to business school where we do a lot of numbers, and I was intimidated even by the percent change and the percent penetration, but it becomes like a language that you learn, and knowledge is power. And it helps you, root your decision making in the numbers, the data, and then use your gut for all the art and the branding and the customer that Emilie mentioned.
That's such great advice. Thank you to the both of you. Thank you so much. We're such big fans of you both personally and professionally, and your brands and everything that you stand for. If you have questions about Settle, I've dropped a link in the chat. I'll also drop that same link below this replay if you're watching that way. If you have questions about the 10th house, you can email me, you can message me. Like I said, we're in our beauty and personal care cohort right now. So if you fall under that umbrella and you're looking for more resources and events like this, we have an event with the founder of OSEA. We have Bobby Brown coming. We have just really incredible people within the space coming to usher our founders into the next stage of their business. So Sarah, Emilie, Settle, thank you so much. We are just so grateful for you spending time with us today.
And thank you, Avery.
Of course,
Yeah,
of course.
thank you so much.
Of course. Bye, everyone. Have a good rest of your work week.
Mhm.
Bye.
Bye.